Welcome to the Midnight Narrator, where the darkest secrets are hidden in plain sight, and the most terrifying monsters aren't always the ones we fear. Tonight, we delve into the chilling tale of the Raven's Mercy, a story of a man who is forced to confront the haunting consequences of a past he tried to forget. What happens when the weight of our guilt becomes too much to bear, and something ancient and terrifying decides to feed on our regret? Are we ever truly free of our past? Listen closely. The Raven is watching, ready to face the truth. I wasn't the one who found Cassian. It was his housemate, Alara, returning from an overnight shift at the diner, eager to change out of her uniform and get some sleep. Instead, she discovered Cassian slumped in a recliner, his head detached, resting in his lap. I would have preferred not to hear the gruesome details. But when Alara called me distraught, she described everything. Deep contusions marked his arms and legs. Blood was everywhere, staining his work shirt and jeans, pooling around the worn recliner. The skin around his neck was ragged, as if torn apart. The muscle was stretched and frayed, and the top of his spine protruded from the open wound. Though we hadn't been close in recent years, I was Cassian's only remaining relative. I booked the next train to the coastal town where he lived and met Alara at a small motel. She was in shock, barely able to speak. Perhaps I resembled my cousin too much for her comfort. After some time, she calmed down enough to talk. I asked if Cassian had been involved in anything dangerous. In his late teens and early 20s, he'd dabbled in petty theft. It was small time, but he'd crossed some unsavory characters who had frightened him enough to make him stop. "Nothing like that," she said, her voice trembling. "He was working as a property caretaker. He cleaned out houses after people moved or passed away. He sorted through everything, separating valuables from junk. He earned a commission on the sales." "Did he ever take anything without permission?" I asked. "Maybe someone felt cheated?" She shook her head. "He bought things he liked, but always fairly. Everyone liked him." She paused, a flicker of sadness in her eyes. "He was kind. He always made sure I had something to eat after my shifts, even if he barely had anything himself." The local constables investigated, but there were no leads, no signs of forced entry, no known enemies. It was as if Cassian had somehow removed his own head. One of the officers mentioned that many cases go unsolved. This seemed destined to be one of them. Weeks passed, and I stayed to support Alara. Even after the investigation concluded, she refused to return to the house. We hired a cleaning service, but they couldn't fully remove the stains. The old wooden floor in the living room was permanently marked. Eventually, the task of retrieving Alara's belongings fell to me. She was still deeply traumatized, planning to stay with relatives indefinitely. I rented a van and some basic tools and told her I would take care of it. I had been staying at a small inn, but with Cassian's house accessible, I decided to stay there for a few nights while I packed. When I mentioned this to Alara, she gave me a strange look. "You shouldn't stay there," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Why not?" I asked, but she couldn't articulate a specific reason. A shiver ran down her spine, and she simply shook her head. The first thing I did after entering the house was go to the living room. I felt compelled to see the place where it had happened. The cleaners had scrubbed thoroughly, but a dark stain remained on the floor. It was roughly oval-shaped, about 2 feet across, mostly a dark brown, almost black at the edges. Alara would have to replace the floorboards before selling the house. I stood there for a moment, imagining Cassian in that spot. I then looked around the room, taking in the details for the first time. Alara hadn't exaggerated about the unusual items Cassian had collected. Scattered throughout the house were antique maps, old scientific instruments, and strange hand-carved objects. Cassian had always had a fascination with unusual artifacts. A large hand-carved wooden raven in the corner of the living room caught my attention. The carving was nearly life-sized, reaching my chest, made from a single piece of dark oak. It was remarkably detailed, except for one missing obsidian eye. The remaining eye gave the impression that the raven was perpetually watching. The wood was aged and worn, with deep cracks running along its wings and body. It didn't appear lifelike, yet it possessed a strange, unsettling presence. As I packed Ilara's belongings, the raven's gaze seemed to follow me. I'm not usually superstitious, but after what happened to Cassian, I was on edge. I eventually draped a piece of old fabric over the carving, covering its head. It felt absurd, but it eased my unease. Hours passed, boxes were packed, and darkness fell. My initial plan was to sleep on the sofa, far from the stain and the raven. I turned off the lights and lay down, but the sofa was uncomfortable. Cassian's comfortable bed lay untouched in the other room. After an hour of tossing and turning, I grabbed a blanket and went to Cassian's room, carefully avoiding the dark stain on the floor. As I placed the blanket on the bed, I glanced at the raven in the corner. The fabric I'd placed over it was now on the floor. I wondered how it had fallen. Perhaps I hadn't secured it properly. The single obsidian eye reflected the moonlight, watching. Feeling foolish, I retrieved the fabric and walked back to the carving. As I did, I heard a faint scratching sound, as if something was moving inside the wooden figure. I jumped back, still holding the fabric. I stared at the carving, waiting for another sound. Nothing. But the eye continued to watch me. Slowly, I returned to the carving and covered it again. I then retreated to the bed, unconsciously stepping within the dark stain on the floor. I lay down, pulled the blanket around me, and fell asleep. I awoke to a creaking sound. At first, everything was still. Then, in the moonlit darkness, I saw the raven begin to shift. Its left wing extended outward, then its right. The wood moved outward, revealing glimpses of something dark and angular within. It resembled the construction toys Cassian and I had played with as children, hidden mechanisms unfolding within a plastic shell. I watched, paralyzed, as two thin, dark limbs emerged from hidden panels near the base. The limbs, no thicker than branches, extended to the floor. Then the entire carving began to move toward me. The wood swayed on some unseen structure within, some impossibly thin creature wearing the wooden raven as a disguise. I searched for an escape. I could jump from the window, but I was on the second floor, and the thing was moving too quickly. As it reached the bed, it extended long, thin arms, its hands widening, almost like plates. It placed them over my ears and everything went black. I awoke sitting on a wooden chair from the kitchen. The raven must have brought it in while I was unconscious. It had placed me within the dark stain. I thought of Cassian, sitting here not long ago. I tried to move, but thin, dark tendrils like the raven's legs bound my ankles to the chair. Its hands still gripped my head. The carving stood inches from me. The single obsidian eye stared intently, but I could now see that the empty eye socket was also open, revealing something dark and shifting inside. "What are you?" I whispered. It made a sound that resembled a chuckle. "I'm not quite a raven," it said. Its voice was low, echoing from within the wooden shell. "Nor am I quite human. Some days I feel closer to bird, some days closer to man. But in truth, I existed long before ravens took flight. I feed on sorrow, on guilt, on the unspoken regrets that fester in the human heart." "Of course," it continued, "ravens are simple creatures. A moonlit night and a field of prey are enough to satisfy them. Every time. Humans, however, are never satisfied." It clicked its beak-like mouth and then fell silent. "But ravens excel in one particular area that I've always admired," it said. "Their ability to turn their heads. Far superior to humans. It's not even a contest." As it spoke, I felt the pressure from its hand-like appendages increase, turning my neck to the right. It was intensely uncomfortable. I thought of Cassian, his head twisted off. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. "Because, as I said, humans are fascinating, yet frustrating. To reiterate the comparison, your vision is limited. Not just your night vision. Your ability to see yourselves is abysmal. With my singular perspective, I perceive truths about you that you refuse to acknowledge." "What are you talking about?" I yelled. It pressed a dark, thin appendage to its beak, silencing me. "Please," it said. "If you must scream, wait until it is truly necessary. Later in our exercise." Exercise, I whispered. A game of my own design, though not dissimilar to human games, a touch of truth or dare, a greater measure of mercy. The rules are simple. I will reveal truths about your life, unpleasant truths. Each truth will be accompanied by physical and emotional pain. When you've endured enough, simply utter the word mercy, and your suffering will end. And my head will be in my lap, I said. Precisely, it said. I knew you were intelligent. Therefore, no further explanation is required, except to add that the outcome is inevitable. You will beg for mercy. I offer you the opportunity to do so now to spare yourself the ordeal. I considered the offer. It would be easy to surrender, to let it do what it intended. One swift final twist. It would all be over. But something within me refused to give in. No, I said. Not yet. From deep within the raven's wooden head, the dark thing observed me. Then, it seemed to nod. I felt its impossibly strong hands tighten on my head, turning it further to the right. It was beyond uncomfortable. I felt the skin stretching, the muscles straining against the dark hands. Along with this physical pain, I will reveal a truth that inflicts similar emotional torment, the dark thing said. Let us begin with the fact that you were never a good cousin. As a child, you were the favored one, monopolizing your aunt's affection, fostering the perception that Cassian was the perpetual failure. Though you feigned kindness, you secretly relished your role as the preferred relative. You even derived a perverse satisfaction from hearing your aunt berate him, denying him meals as he wept in his room, knowing his transgressions only amplified your own virtue. No, I said, trying to free my neck. Is that what Cassian told you? I was a good cousin. After she scolded him, I'd go to his room, sneak him food when she threw his dinner away. I took care of him. The thing's hands tightened, turning my head further. That occurred perhaps once or twice, the thing said. It offered little solace to your cousin. More often, he went to bed hungry, acutely aware that no one truly cared for him, least of all you. Your guilt. It sustains me. It makes me stronger. I wanted to protest, but I knew it would only bring more pain. I remained silent. Even in adulthood, you abandoned him, it continued. It would have been effortless to assist him financially. You knew he was struggling, resorting to desperate measures to survive. He would have squandered the money, I said. He might have relapsed, gotten himself into even worse trouble. No, it shrieked, its tone shifting to anger. You were selfish. You wanted to watch him suffer. You desired to maintain your superiority. It twisted my neck another few degrees. I felt a wetness on my skin and wondered if I was bleeding. Why are you even here? It demanded. You never visited him when he was alive. Perhaps you were resentful of his attempts to rebuild his life, or perhaps it's Alara. You always believed she was too good for Cassian. You harbored a secret desire for her, didn't you? Perhaps now that he's gone. No, I said, tears streaming down my face. I was trying to be a good cousin, I swear. Too late, the thing screamed. Too late. It twisted my head again. I felt a sharp pain, a tearing sensation. Mercy, quickly, or the pain will intensify, the thing shouted, a note of fear creeping into its voice. I'm sorry, Cassian, I whispered into the darkness. I'm sorry, I did my best. I truly loved you. Mercy, the thing shrieked. Go ahead, I said. It will be over soon enough, but I'll never ask for it. Never. As I spoke, the first rays of dawn pierced through the drawn curtains. Where the sunlight touched the thing's hands, the wood began to smoke and crackle. A high-pitched shriek emanated from within the carving, a sound of pure agony. The entity thrashed, its wooden limbs twitching and spasming. The obsidian eye rolled in its socket, reflecting the sunlight like a burning coal. Mercy. I'll be back. You can't escape your past, the thing shouted, its voice weakening as the sunlight intensified. Go ahead, I repeated, my voice hoarse but firm. The sun shone brighter. Slowly, the pressure on my head began to lessen. The dark limbs retreated. The raven began to recede into the corner. By the time the room was bathed in sunlight, the carving was back in its original position. That morning, I returned to Alara's relative's house with a few boxes of her belongings. I must have looked terrible because she asked me with concern how I was doing. "I'm all right," I said, "but I can't stay there anymore. I need to go home." She nodded, understanding. "I've been thinking," she said. "I think I can manage the rest. I've been relying on you too much." A wave of panic washed over me. "Promise me you won't go back there," I said. "Promise me." "I wouldn't dream of it," she said. "Even when Cassian was alive, I didn't like being there. All those old things. I never liked the smell. But Cassian loved them, so—" "Thank you," I said, trying to remain composed, "for being so good to him." She hugged me tightly. "I know you two hadn't spent much time together recently, but Cassian always said you were there for him when it mattered," she said. "Now I understand what he meant." She glanced at my rented van. In the back lay the wooden raven. "Is that one of Cassian's?" she asked. "I was hoping you'd let me keep it," I said. "One last thing to remember him by." She shrugged. "I've never seen it before. Maybe he'd just acquired it." "Yes," I said. "Perhaps." I said goodbye and got into the van. And then I drove. I left the town behind, heading toward the rural areas where the urban landscape gave way to forests and open fields. When I was certain I was in the middle of nowhere, I stopped. I took the carving from the back of the van and dragged it into a sunny field. All the while I could hear the faint scratching sound from within. The day was growing warmer, and I could tell the heat and light were affecting the thing inside. I knew the wood was riddled with cracks. Some of them must have been large enough to let the sunlight through. "It's only noon," I said. "Not yet the hottest part of the day. That will be in a few hours. I wonder if you'll last that long." A small shriek emanated from within the raven. I ignored it. "In the van, I have a saw," I continued. "I could cut this wooden shell in half and expose you to the light, and I will. But first, I need you to ask for mercy." And that's the end of the raven's mercy. A tale of guilt, vengeance, and the terrifying price of mercy. Sometimes the darkness we face isn't outside us, but within. When we can no longer run from the ghosts of our past, they come for us in ways we never expect. If tonight's story left you questioning your own truths, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more spine-chilling tales. Until next time, remember, the raven never forgets. This is the Midnight Narrator, and we'll be waiting just beyond the shadows.